Good morning. I want to thank everyone who joins us. My name is Olha, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Ukraine Media Center today. Today we have invited you for a presentation of a study called When AI Turns Her Style. So this study is based on the evidences of 119 Ukrainian media activists. It was undertaken by Women in Media NGO with the support of UNESCO and the Embassy of Japan. So today we are going to discuss another side of the development of the artificial intelligence. We use it. We talk a lot about how useful it is. However, along with the new opportunities, we find new challenges, and we are going to discuss these challenges for the women, the journalist women in Ukrainian context. All of those threats are intensified. We understand it's intensified by the war, the full-scale invasion, the war that we've been living in for 11 years, and it's also supported by the high level of digitalization, which has its pros and cons. So those are the topics that we are going to discuss, the challenges that are faced by the Ukrainian journalists, women journalists on a daily basis. So let me introduce our speakers. Joining us online is the head of the UNESCO desk in Ukraine, Chiara Dezzi Bardeschi. Also joining us in our studio are Liza Kuzmenko, head of the Women in Media NGO, member of the Commission of Journalism Ethics. Also joining us is Olena Mudra, investigative journalist from Uzhhorod. Also joining us is Viktor Baiov, head of the Department for Countering Illegal Content at the Cyber Police Department of the National Police of Ukraine. And also joining us is Olha Kozub, legal expert on artificial intelligence at the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. Thank you for joining us today. It's great having you. And before the beginning of the presentation, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Chiara for a short word of introduction for all of us. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and dobre ranok to all you in the room and online. Good morning, distinguished colleagues, dear partners and friends. It's a pleasure to join you today for this important conversation on the online safety of women journalists in Ukraine, organized by our long-standing partners, NGOs Women in Media. Allow me to begin by congratulating our partners on the excellent new research when AI turns hostile gendered threats against Ukrainian women journalists. I show you the report, but you will see in the room and you will discuss on it. Conducted in partnership with UNESCO and with the generous support of Japan. Gender equality, along with the public access to reliable information, is a global priority for UNESCO, and we work to integrate these principles across all our policies, programs, and processes. Across the world, women journalists face a double vulnerability: threats related to their professions and threats related to their gender. And technology is increasingly being used to undermine freedom of expression and press freedom. And generative AI tools are unfortunately being weaponized for this purpose. This undermines the very principle that information must remain a public good. UNESCO Global Report, The Chilling, highlights that 73% of women journalists worldwide have faced digital violence, and generative technologies are making these attacks more diverse, more targeted, and more damaging. This issue is especially relevant in Ukraine, where journalists play a vital role in documenting the reality of the war, exposing human rights violations, countering disinformation, and providing life-saving information to communities. Publishing the results of this research within this broader context underscores the urgency of addressing online violence as part of global efforts to strengthen information integrity and media freedom. The study we are presenting today is the first in Ukraine to comprehensively examine how AI is reshaping the safety landscape for women journalists. UNESCO calls for strong newsroom policies on AI use and online safety, trainings on the prevention of technology-facilitated gender-based violence, clear reporting channels and responsibility for support and support mechanism for journalists. Equally important is meaningful accountability from digital platforms, including rapid response systems and transparent content moderation. The responsibility for confronting online violence cannot fall on victims, nor should they be left to cope with such attacks alone. Collective and systemic, I would even add, action is essential, and UNESCO stands ready to support these efforts. Internationally, we draw attention to the UNESCO approach outlined in the manual Red Teaming Artificial Intelligence for Social Goods, the Playbook, that just was issued. We have here the report in this year 2025, which emphasizes that testing generative AI systems for vulnerabilities must go beyond technical expertise and include those most affected by potential harm. This reinforces the need to involve civil society and directly affected groups in shaping safe and inclusive AI governance. And let me reaffirm that online violence is not virtual. It is a real violence with real consequences for women's participation in public life. And Ukraine's courageous journalists, especially women, deserve to work free from fear, both online and offline. I wish you once again to thank the NGO Women in Media for their leadership in this issue in Ukraine, the government of Japan for supporting such essential initiatives, and all the journalists who shared their testimonies. Their courage and openness make this work possible. Really thank you for all and wish you an interesting debate and conservation on this key issue. Thank you very much.
Пані Chiara, дякую вам дуже за такі.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chiara, for such a profound analysis of the threat. So we would like to give the floor to Ms. Liza. The women in media were undertaking this survey. For everybody in the room, you may find a copy of the study in your seats. So, Ms. Liza, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. I would like also to thank our partners, UNESCO and the Embassy of Japan, who provided us with the support in a quite a focused manner when it comes to preparation of this study. So we've already mentioned that the life is being transferred online more and more, just like the crime. And why are we talking about the women's exposure to the threats? The men are being exposed to such threats as well, but the women are exposed to just because of the fact that they are women, and it's all gender-based. Like recently we had this gender profile, an annual gender profile. Joining us here in this room is Dmitry who was joining us there. And we've seen that the majority of the journalists in Ukraine are women. More than 70% of the reporters, those working in the fields, are women, and they are mostly subject to those threats related to online violence and artificial intelligence. As we were undertaking this survey, well, it's not representative. There are no representative studies in Ukraine anymore due to the war, but it allowed us to see certain trends. We've surveyed 119 women journalists using Google Forms, and when it comes to the respondents' profile, those were the women 18 to 35 years. Another group was 35 to 45 years. They were representing all types of media, both printed and online, as well as multimedia platforms and radio. They were representing local media and national media as well. So we can draw some conclusions about some basic tendencies, even despite the fact that the study was not representative. Now we see that gender-based violence with the use of artificial intelligence becomes a new threat. Well, more than half of the respondents were facing online violence with the use of artificial intelligence. 14% more mentioned that it was difficult for them to discern whether it was AI or not. So, which means that it's already difficult for us to discern like real picture from artificial intelligence generated. Well, you can get a clicker to click through your presentation. Also, about 16% mentioned that if they were not facing the fact of such online violence personally, they were witnessing their colleagues facing such kind of violence. And our forecast is that this trend is going to grow in an avalanche-like manner. And also, we need to mention that the majority of such cases happened in Facebook. We're saying now that everyone left Facebook now, but the professional journalist discussion is still going on in Facebook. And one of the problems is that Facebook doesn't have a local office in Ukraine. There is no direct communication with the platforms, and local Ukrainian context is still not being taken into account by Meta to a larger extent. And also 70% of the journalists mentioned that they underwent certain AI training, but only 20% of the editors have some policies related to the use of AI, and such policies are mostly aimed at informing audience about the use of AI. But when it comes to the risks faced by the journalists themselves, such policies don't take them into account. Also, we've seen that 70% of the media persons said that their outlets are discussing the policies that would outline the threats posed by AI. And the most widespread types of attack are gender misinformation. For example, a journalist of Hromadske radio, Irina Sampan, there was a fake information spread about her, that she was a lover of Zelensky, that she was working in Dubai as escort model, that she didn't have journalism education, that she got to the media through the bed. This is just an example of media misinformation. Another type of attack is imitation of a person, when multiple profiles of a person are being created which are not real. And third are mimetic campaigns, well, which means the creation of some memes others can mock. And another type of attack is doppling, when multiple participants of discussion are attacking one person. and mostly they attack some journalists who uncover some important topics such as crime of Russian Federation or corruption. So basically the journalists who pose the direct threats to the corruptionists in Russia. And instead of fulfilling their job, they get distracted to countering those online attacks. Well, but basically this is what I was saying, 70% on Facebook, 20% of the outlets who have AI policies, and basically when it comes to the cases, there were 5 of them, plus a case of Olena Mudra, who is joining us in this studio and can join her case with us. So in the eve of the 9th of May, that was a coordinated attack on Telegram, YouTube, and TikTok, where there were videos posted as if Olha Budko, a journalist of the News United Marathon, as if she confused President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky with President of Russia Vladimir Putin. And she, as if she was saying Donald Trump will talk to the President of Ukraine Vladimir Putin, or I'm sorry, Volodymyr Zelensky, and the footage was made in such a way that she was really meaning, as if she was really meaning Putin, and that video was quickly picked up by Russian media, who were saying, like, now already Ukrainian media hosts are saying the president of Ukraine is Putin. Well, you see, I made that mistake too, right? I said Putin, damn it. So yeah, now this video is going to be picked up by Russians too. So on the 9th of May, we just switch on the channel with the News United Marathon. Oh, I can see a representative of a cyber police ready to act. So we're going to Rada channel, and we see, you see in this fake video, the host is wearing a red jacket, and on the 9th of May, she was wearing a brown jacket. So in fact, there was a report about Trump's call, but it was mentioned by Maxim Zborovsky, another TV host. So basically, we can check which channels spread that message. For example, there was one of the biggest Russian anonymous Telegram channels, such as Rhythms and Punches, and they picked up that video immediately to spread the misinformation. So basically the spread is quite real, and when you understand that it's an artificially generated video, you can react. But if you come across it in your news on Facebook, I mean, a lot of people may just don't notice that it's AI generated. Another case is a miscrediting campaign about the Mirror of the Week, Zerkalo Tizhny, and it was not only about Inna Vedernikova, but also about Yulia Mostova, the editor-in-chief. It was reported by the journalist herself. So there were zoomorphic images of those journalists created, and they were spread by Joker Telegram channel as a reaction to her investigation. The journalist was described as non-professional, covering her husband, who was serving in the armed forces of Ukraine. Well, they were saying she didn't have enough sleep. It seems like that's a normal thing for all of us now during the war. But what is the reaction of the journalist? What should be the reaction of a journalist when instead of doing their job, they have to fend off those attacks, whether they had or didn't have enough sleep? There were attacks that she was emotionally unstable, that she was living on grants. However, the whole country of Ukraine is now supported by international foundations, and saying someone is living off grants is just unacceptable. So women in media, we were helping Inna Vedernikova, and basically as an organization, we don't only try to document the cases of online violence intensified by artificial intelligence, we also provide psychological support, we provide legal support. We sent Vedernikova to Truskavets for rest and recreation. I think it really helps sometimes to step out of that online flow to together, so to put yourself together your forces and to continue to carry on. Another fake was aiming a well-known TV host from 1+1, Alla Mazur, Natalia Musichuk, and others, about the so-called medical topic. Usually there are emotional messages being spread with artificially generated video content. Well, Alla Mazur never said it, and usually such videos are spread through TikTok. For example, like Alla Mazur was saying, everybody who has varicoses, come and we're gonna help you. And they use online forms like fill it and you'll get it. And they use the images of the TV host as some kind of a reliable people. So those are some fraudulent schemes in healthcare sector. When it comes to Natalia Musichuk, she was spreading, well, it was not she who was spreading, but the criminals who were spreading a video about the medicines against diabetes found. For example, like a well-known Ukrainian surgeon, Boris Todurov, presented the cure for diabetes that was produced in coordination with Pfizer Corporation. Well, first of all, there was no such video on 1+1. Then Pfizer is a well-known international corporation, but we don't really know whether they do anything about the diabetes drugs. And Boris Todurov is a cardiovascular surgeon, and he has nothing to do with diabetes. And another case is when the content is completely generated. For example, we see like Alla Mazur as a real TV presenter, but saying something that she was never saying. And in this case, the TV presenters, they are unknown, but the microphone bears an emblem of Rada TV channel. The journalists are standing in front of the parliament, and the visual aesthetics of a journalist is a young woman, and she's like an archetype of a truth communicator, and joining her in the footage is a non-existent politician. And the journalist is asking this man wearing the suit, when the war is Ukraine gonna end? And he's answering, when we steal enough, that's when the war ends. And the journalist turns to the camera and she says, okay, glory to Ukraine. So that's a sarcasm that is supposed to make people laugh, but in fact such videos only intensify the mistrust in Ukrainian authorities. The goal of such videos is to instill mistrust in Ukrainian authorities, as if the war is going on because of the corruption. And what's also important, such videos like this are mostly spread in TikTok. TikTok is aiming at the young audience. Well, those who don't know the faces in general, right, but the video about diabetes is aiming at the audience of older age. Meanwhile, such videos are aiming at younger audience, but it bears a small emblem of like V letter, is processed by a video aggregator by Google DeepMind. So there is an emblem, but not many people know what it means. And obviously, when we are aware of such tools, it's easier for us to defend. I think in school we should start telling children which tools exist, how to tell AI-generated characters. Well, sometimes I'm looking at TikTok and there are AI-generated animals and you cannot tell them from real world, so you think probably such things really exist. Well, the last case, well, not the last, but the last we wanted to describe is about Miss Olena Mudra. Miss Olena, you're an investigative journalist, and unfortunately you've become an object of a crime. We need to call crimes what they are, no matter they're happening online. And sometimes people think that if the crime is taking place online, it's less harmful, but that's not the case, and you become an object of such crime. Can you please share your experience? What was really going on? Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for invitation. Thank you for having me. Also, I would like to thank women in media and all of the media community. I would like to thank all of the organizations who provided me with an unprecedented and unwavering support. It's been the second time that women in media provide me with the support in such miscreating campaigns that are taking place because of my professional activity. I do journalist investigations. I work in Zakarpattia in a complicated small region when everyone knows each other. But nevertheless, cases like that still happen. And now due to the war, let me give just a little bit of a context for your better understanding. Because of the war, the Transcarpathian region is changing dramatically. Now our authorities are preparing the new scheme of the Zakarpattia region, transforming recreational region into an industrial one. So we are going to lose the forest, we are going to lose the recreation in the Carpathian Mountains, we are going to have another industrial district in Ukraine. And within the last couple of years, we started facing big businesses, big money, for whom our work creates obstacles, so to say. That's why me and 3 more of my colleagues who were working in my project, who were covering all those environmental crime in Carpathian Mountains, well, they were all becoming subject to this misinformation campaign. And among all of the tools that were used in that campaign, basically they also have taken advantage of the cutting-edge technologies. And there was a case when artificial intelligence and deepfakes were used to miscredit me specifically, because out of all of the participants, only my son was used to spread deepfakes. So there was a non-existing person generated a troll as if they were giving comments, and there were also the generated images of TV presenters who were as if they were reading the news. So how it was used after it already happened, after it was made public when I was talking to my child, they, first of all, they used an image dating back 1 year ago. They found an image in a website of one of the football clubs. It's a football club of a country where my child has been studying in since pre-COVID times, and as long as they didn't know his voice, they could only see the picture. They've generated a voice track with him saying, asking me, like, "Mom, don't lie." That was the key phrase. But that was definitely not his voice, and it became a key for me to understand that it cannot be my son. Then he recognized the picture himself. He found it himself on that website. But another illustrative thing is that they were gathering information about me and about him half a year before that video was made public, because the pictures of him that were used was coming from social media, and he locked all the pages in his social media with the beginning of this year, so they might have been able to steal that picture between the years 23, 24, maybe in the beginning of 25. And what was also illustrative, they were undertaking this campaign in a targeted manner in the Carpathia region, in publics, in those towns where I live, where my family lives, where I originate from, and basically even the people who were knowing him, they sent it to him. So how did he found out? Did he find out? A mother of his friend sent it to him. Like, look what is being spread about it. And even the people who were hearing his voice, they were asking themselves, could it really be him? That's what he told me. And those criminals, they launched an ads campaign with this video, because my father, he found it out in YouTube during a fight of Alexander Usyk, and suddenly he sees that ad with his grandchild saying, "Mom, don't lie." I mean, those people like helped me to leave the country. I'm happy. They were also trying to target the fact of his belonging to LGBT community. You know, such things that can, so to say, target sensitive audiences in such conservative region as Carpathia, and the people who saw him, you know, for them, what was most impressive, not the present of my son, but rather a troll, Mariko Fedirko. They've seen that that image was generated by AI, and it already made the trust in the veracity of this campaign dissolve, so to say. So that was a failure campaign for those who ordered it, but I cannot say it didn't add intensity and agitation, as well as fears about my security. That's why I decided to make all those things public, because first of all, I'm trying to protect myself, because there are two criminal proceedings for intrusion in personal life and impeding journalism activities. And in the police, when I was getting myself familiarized with the case, the police officer is saying, like, look, those are the new kinds of crime. They are difficult to investigate. If, for example, there would be some harm inflicted on you, like physical harm. Well, but there was harm. Yeah, but he was meaning like physical harm. Yeah, what I mean is a reputational harm, something like that. They were trying to inflict reputational harm. They didn't make it. I'm happy to state it here. With those pictures, you know, the case with Vitaly Shabunin, I don't know what else they would be able to come up with. You know, those people are sitting there, they're ruining Carpathian Mountains. The legislation is being changed in their favor, and I will continue doing my job in the Carpathia region, but the risk is still there. But again, one thing is that I'm trying to protect myself. I'm trying to protect my family talking about this. And yet another thing is the self-censure, not only my self-censure, but self-censure of that small small fraction of independent media, that there are only 2 teams like that in the Zakarpattia region, and there is intrusion, there is impeding. Also, there were attempts to make it smooth with me, and it depends on the media representatives whether they prefer to remain independent, because if in such ways we are being dictated, don't touch this, remove this post, or remove this article because I don't like it, and asking like, have I violated anything? And they say no, but I'm just asking you, but what kind of journalist I would be then? So in our media environment, that's also a huge problem. And I think if things happen like this, if I'm trying to protect myself, discussing it, then probably some of the colleagues who are standing on a, so to say, threshold of such events, they remain professional, they won't be intimidated, and the independent quality media will survive in our region. So probably we will be able to develop some practice that would help us in the future to protect the media activists against such attacks. Olena, thank you very much for sharing your case. That's really quite important. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Viktor based on Olena's case. You know, she calls it a failure, but still there is a feeling that with time such cases may become more successful, more thoroughly prepared, and it would be more and more difficult to counter such cases. So I would like to ask you, how do you categorize such attacks that involve the use of artificial intelligence, or where the artificial intelligence is used to alter some products? Well, good morning, dear media community. Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I need to say that your study is quite fundamental. I can see it has taken a lot of effort, a lot of energy invested. I've got myself familiarized with your study. You touch upon quite important issues, and for us as a law enforcement agency, as a department of cyber police, artificial intelligence plays on both sides. It helps us. I think it helps you too. But on the other hand, the fraudsters, the people involved in illegal activities, in different sectors of illegal activities, they also use it for their own purposes. And logically, we categorize this sector as intensified cyber threat. It can both integrate the methods of standard cyber crime, such as phishing, spreading of malware, DDoS attacks, use of botnets, and it's all been integrated with automated content generation. I mean, the cases that you've demonstrated today. Also, it integrates deepfake tools and social engineering campaigns. So such incidents can be categorized in 3 dimensions: by method of attack, about level of organization, and goals and consequences. When it comes to methods of attack, it can be AI-generated phishing with automated bots distro integrated into media platforms. What are the goals and consequences? That's probably one of the key classifiers in that dimension that can both pose economic losses, losses to reputation. That's what we're discussing now. Psychological pressure, destabilization of information space, and the threat to the national security and defense during the war. because even those videos where your colleague, your journalist, as if she said the name, she had that slip up, it creates an impression among the public that the journalists think that Putin is already our president. It destabilizes the situation, and it also disrupts their vision that we want to get integrated with Russia as soon as possible. Well, when it comes to level of organization, we can see that such things can be created by individual hackers or fraudsters or criminal networks like fraud networks and crime networks integrated into state authorities involved in corruption activities. And one of the areas is the use of artificial intelligence in an attempt to smear the competitors or the media community. Such classification allows us to integrate the classical approaches with the cutting-edge priorities of the investigation. Well, Viktor, talking about the legislation, we frequently come across such cases when we stumble upon some new kinds of crimes, some cutting-edge technologies. Very frequently, our legislators don't promptly react to such things. In your opinion, what needs to be changed? Are there any new resources that we need? Because countering this kind of crime, first of all, is not cheap. Probably we need more human resources, but also technical resources to investigate this kind of crime. Well, the way I see, the way my department sees it, and all of our law enforcement structure sees it, first of all, we need to implement the complex approach. First, to update the criminal and administrative legislation, because currently there is no identification of clear description of AI's powered crime. We need to put it in legislation. We need the legislators to put it as a new kind of crime, because for us, for the law enforcement, it would be easier to describe it as aggravating factors, for example, as well as facilitation of access to the digital procedures, as well as investments in digital forensics. We need to establish a digital forensic library with automatic recognition of botnets. And it's more of a matter of expert studies. For the time being, our state institutions didn't segregate it as a separate type of expertise. I mean, the work with artificial intelligence, and now it's difficult to appoint an examination to prove whether the video is a real person or AI generated. There is no state examination like that. Only a private examinators can do that, but their proofs don't have such a force in or such power in the criminal proceedings. Also, we need to train experts like AI forensics or digital forensics who will study the algorithms, who will be able to explain how the materials can be gathered and integrated into the criminal cases. Well, there are already centers of communication established for prompt response to the incidents involving artificial intelligence or provoked by artificial intelligence, because the larger they will become in numbers, given the political component of existence of our country and the enemy trying to disrupt us day by day. Also, it's important to make amendments to the policies of platform regulation, as well as suppliers of AI services to such platforms. That would contemplate a mandatory cooperation and coordination with the law enforcement agencies of Ukraine for urgent investigations. For example, we have a procedure of emergency requests for the platforms when it comes to child pornography, distribution of weapons, threats of murder or murder. We have already procedures established, and I think that when it comes to artificial intelligence, we need to come up to the same level so that we don't wait 3 months or half a year until a country whose jurisdiction covers this product responds to us. We don't have to wait until the court provides a permit, prosecutors review it, and then they provide the information about those who were ordering that kind of services. It should all be happening within 2 to 3 days promptly, so that we could immediately understand who's behind that attack. So integration of all those challenges will improve the quality and speed of reaction, speed of response. Thank you, Viktor. We understand there's a lot of work still to be done. Well, Ms. Olha, I would like to give the floor to you. Ministry of Digital Transformation is usually a leader when it comes to new transformative products. So we would like to find out whether you already have initiatives developed to counter these kind of threats. Well, good morning all. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for this study, because you're really touching upon quite an important topic. And as a representative of the Ministry of Digital Transformation, we work with AI, we attend different activities. We keep saying that artificial intelligence helps to optimize different processes, different activities, but we realize that artificial intelligence may not only do something useful, but may also pose a threat. That's why we started developing our documents, such as recommendations for responsible use of artificial intelligence in different sectors. And one of the guidelines was specifically issued for media sector, and it was covering the issues of the use of artificial intelligence in the media sector. So, for example, we were mentioning that you have to mark your contact, and it was all done in compliance with the newest EU regulations. But in the view of the quick development of the artificial intelligence, we set up the workshops, we invite different AI experts, and we demonstrate images generated by artificial intelligence, and we tell the audience, like, let's play, let's try to tell artificial intelligence from the real pictures, and the people switch on their critical thinking, but still they make mistakes, and the experts say, like, look, for example, here there are 6 fingers, or here the image is blurred, or here this object is depicted in some unusual manner, or the word is misspelled. And again, when it comes to our critical thinking as the consumers of content, we keep watching those short videos. Sometimes we switch off our critical thinking, and we may succumb to such deepfakes, to such information. So we should start such activities with telling that there are deepfakes, there are such kinds of misinformation. Unfortunately, for example, people of say older age, they don't even know such things exist. And when it comes to such cases as Mosychuk, Ministry of Health, diabetes, first of all, we need to make our citizens aware about what artificial intelligence is, and basically we disseminate such recommendations. We don't only develop them in coordination with the partners, but we also attend such kind of activities. Also, we have AI Excellency Center where we implement AI in such tools as DIA. We develop our own LLM model so that our Ukrainian content can be spread, so that we can consume historic data of Ukraine rather than historic data of China, some DeepSeek and stuff. So first of all, I would really also like to thank you for this study, for covering this important topic, and not only discussing it, but also moving forward with it. Thank you, Ms. Olha, and I would like to give somebody from the studio an opportunity to ask questions, provide comments, reflections. So please let us know in case you have any questions or comments. Please raise your hand. A microphone, please. Victoria Polchenko, creative producer of Promin Radio. Well, I'm attending this activity not as a journalist only, but also as a radio presenter, because the use of artificial intelligence goes way beyond the violation of personal borders and facts. It's also about the copyright. Just recently, our community of radio hosts and actors came across a number of sites generating their voices. We didn't provide our permit for that. Obviously, it probably cannot be documented as a violation, but hypothetically, the voices of well-known dubbing actors can be used for generating of something. Well, we all remember how Tower was broken, and now President Zelensky is still in reanimation, but that was an artificial radio host. It can be done at the level of the state. The fakes can be spread with the voices that are trusted. And I was really sitting here and looking through efficient recommendations, and I'm ready as a creative producer. I've come up with the idea, why don't we come to TikTok with a campaign? Like in a plain form, using the media persons, we could explain how to tell AI from real, how to avoid threats, where to go, whom to address in case you are being threatened. And it would be my pleasure to share this study with my colleagues. I will gather the radio presenters to share this information with them. Sometimes they are too emotional, and you have to tell them, like, stop. Until the crime is documented, it's not a crime. But really, if we talk about the voice of every media person, it's like a fingerprint. We can be identified by our voice. So I really appreciate the coverage of this topic, and I appreciate the support of the colleagues in the media. And now I know that if anyone ends up in a situation like that, they are not all alone with their problems. We had another question in the studio. Thank you for the study. Anastasia Moskvichova from Grati Journal. Are there cases in the practice of our police when the law enforcement identified the personalities behind the AI-powered attacks, and how the response of the law enforcement is different from the response to this kind of attacks is different from anonymized regular attacks in social media that affect the work of the journalists too. So what the law enforcement can do if this kind of activity is considered a misdemeanor. Well, let me start from the end. When it comes to response in case of cyber incidents, we have algorithms in place. They are standardized. If there is a crime identified, the criminal proceeding is being initiated, and respectively the Department of Cyber Police supports this criminal investigation. In case there are any traces, any information, the video is generated. Our experts try to take it apart, so to say, and if we achieve understanding of what platform was used to generate and post it within our competence, we can submit inquiries. Sometimes we were quite successful in obtaining information, and that was information extended within the framework of international cooperation. That's what I was saying. There is no algorithm of prompt response to our request. When it comes to the persons who were posting these kind of videos, and respectively communication with the AI generators is not efficiently coordinated so far. Also, in any case, we get involved at our level. We initiate all of the checks and inspections. If we can identify a criminal, we identify them. And when it comes to the first part of your question about the cases, back in September, I guess, the representatives of the Kharkiv Department of Cyber Police, they liquidated an organized crime group who was selling biologically active substances online. It was a call center. They were calling elderly people, suggesting the drugs that were curing everything. And one of the cases, there was an expert involved in generation of AI-powered videos generation, so we can somehow connect it with this case of Olha Mother. You know, when there is a structured, organized community who is involved in these type of illegal activities, and one of the ways to support this illegal activity is the use of artificial intelligence. Well, basically, this is what I can comment within my competence without disclosing the details of the criminal proceedings. Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I would like to thank you for your activity. We would like to thank, first of all, the Women in Media NGO who made us think about all of those problems that we've seen today. Also, I would like to thank the donors who support such projects, and we'd like to thank all of you for your interest in this topic. And obviously the security and defense forces, thanks to whom we can gather here and discuss topics like this. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.